Welcome back to collecting Star Wars figures, modern Star Wars figures, that is, the series. An interesting YouTube perspective where we look back at this line 25 years ago, and I have a unique perspective being both a collector and a toy industry veteran. I never worked on this line, but I collected it like a madman possessed, and with my knowledge of working in the industry, well, let's take it away. So, for those following at home, well, you're all probably at home, unless you're at work, you've noticed that I may have skipped over these deluxe figures that got released in conjunction with Wave 1 and 2. The reason for that is, while these are cool, I'm not that big into, I'm some of the expanded universe, but the kind of slightly off-camera, deliberately done because they make good toys design. Yes, I understand why they do this, because as a brand manager, you have to have different price points for a planogram, and this works perfectly as a deluxe figure SKU at a higher price point for a giftable item. But as a fan, I was like, outside of the Tatooine skiff, which actually was pretty cool, the figures as slightly off-camera versions didn't really appeal to me. For kids, though, hopefully this was great. What kid doesn't want Han Solo with a giant backpack with huge pinching arms and jets and, the whole 9 yards? It's perfect for a kid, and that's what this line was aimed at. It wasn't aimed at collectors, at least not entirely, and at least not at this point. And yes, I know these deluxe figures are kind of in the heritage of the mini rigs from the vintage line, but again, wasn't really for me, which is why I skip over things that aren't quite original trilogy on screen. And hey, it's my collection and my rules, and that's kind of what collecting toys is all about, is you get to do so how you want to collect and what you want to collect. So that's why this series is just going to focus on original trilogy figures that were pretty much in the movie. Sorry, Master Windu. As cool as you are, I'm an original trilogy purist, and that's what my collection is about, and that's what this series is going to be about. So don't expect me to hit on things like those deluxe figures. And I say all this because we're now up to our first non-original trilogy release, which was the Shadows of the Empire wave on what I thought actually was really cool purple cards, because purple is my favorite color. Shadows of the Empire was a whole multimedia event, and I did read the book, and the soundtrack by Joel McNeely is awesome, especially that Dash Rendar, track where he's racing through the desert. Amazing, amazing. I love the way they did this as a multimedia event of everything from figures to books to comics to video games without the movie. That was kind of the idea, was to do a Star Wars event, everything you would have outside of the movie. The figures, while they were released on purple cards in the US, they did get a orange card release internationally with, the traditional line look, and still with, though, the hologram stickers. And there were a few vehicles released that did have the purple line look, notably the Swoop, which was then put into the special edition, as well as Dash Rendar's Outrider, which was also then put into the special edition. Interesting. So, yeah, speaking of Dash Rendar, here he is, his dashing look himself, as well as Luke in a Coruscant guard disguise. Shizor, the evil underworld prince with pheromones, and Chewbacca in Snuva disguise. So these figures did start the hologram sticker trend that was going to eventually become part of the release of all the figures, starting, in a wave or two, because they were moving on and needed a new brand look, and I think they saw the success worked well. But once again, this channel and my collection is dedicated to original trilogy figures, so I'm skipping over the Shadows of the Empire figures as expanded universe and focusing on characters from the original trilogy, which at this time we kind of thought was a one and done. We had no idea that for years and years we were eventually going to get redos and remakes of figures. So that brings us to the first figure in the wave, and this was on an orange card. Here we have Jedi Master, not Master, I guess Jedi Knight, excuse me, he's not a Master quite yet. Luke, actually, he's not even a Jedi Knight yet at this point. Until Yoda tells him he is later in the movie, even though the card called him out as Jedi Knight. So this was Luke in his Jabba Palace garb, where he is wearing a black tunic and a supposed to be tan sleeveless robe, but as we'll see, Hasbro Kenner had a tough time with this. So he was also one of the figures that had one of the early major variants, being that his tunic was painted more of a tan, light brown color originally, and was quickly changed to black. So this became one of the more sought-after early variants in the line, not counting the long lightsabers that shipped with Wave 1 and 2. This was the first Luke that did not have a long lightsaber. He now had the standard size, although he got his Return of the Jedi saber with the new hilt and the green blade. But the tan vest version became an early figure everybody wanted. And he also got a release for the special editions that you got when you bought a ticket at a movie theater. They took the same figure and just put it on a different card with the special edition movie logo called out instead of the picture of Mark Hamill or the screen grab of Luke, however you're going to look at it. And I was really fortunate to have actually gotten one of these legitimately when I went to buy my ticket, and like some others, the glue eventually faded and my figure fell off the card, basically making it not just worthless, but no longer the souvenir of my time going to see the special editions. I was really sad about that. But the figure I liked, the figure I was really happy to get, because the vintage Luke Jedi Knight, or Jabba Palace Luke, however you want to say it, and that's actually important for a moment, was really cool. Despite the fact that for years, and not just years, but decades, Hasbro could not get Luke's cloak right. The first figure, this one from Power of the Force 2, it was all black to match his black outfit. So he's wearing his black outfit on during the skiff battle. He sheds his cloak that he wore into Jabba's palace when he's thrown into the Rancor pit. You'll see him kind of throw it off of him real quick. It kind of blink and you miss it moment. And later on in the movie, when he's on the second Death Star dueling with Vader and, the whole redemption aspect, he's in a slightly different black outfit. He loses the tunic and it's more of a kind of one-piece, like karate kind of thing. And it took years, again, decades before this look was ever done as a single release figure. There was the one of him with the angry face smashing the bar, so I guess that one counts before this one. But eventually, Hasbro sort of figured out that yes, there's two legitimate looks, and although the Death Star 2 Endor look was first released on a Jabba's Palace card, and then switched, where they then called him Luke Skywalker Endor or Endor Capture. So, just kind of added to the confusion of the fact that it really was two distinct outfits he wore. They were just they were both all black, and they tended to get blurred, especially in the action figure world. And that cloak, release after release, not right, either all black or tan with sleeves like a Jedi cloak. This is not what he wore. He wore a sleeveless dark brown cloak. And again, decades, it was 2020 before we finally got a screen-accurate version of Luke from Jabba's palace with the right cloak, in the right color, with the right type of cut, without the sleeves. So I was overjoyed to get this vintage figure collection, but it took a long time to get there. And that Power of the Force 2 figure, whether it's brown vest or black vest, black cloak, not right. Next up on our orange card was Han Solo in Carbonite, which was a really cool kind of twofer because you got both Han Solo, and this was one of the biggest accessories we got to date in the Power of the Force 2 line, at least especially with a single figure, and that was the Carbonite block, which itself is kind of a figure. So one interesting note about Han Solo when he's on Bespin in his Bespin fatigues, as the Kenner figure called it, and then he's put into Carbonite with the arm shackles and the hand shackles. In some of the close-up shots, he's still wearing his vest, and then in the long shots, he's no longer wearing his vest. But either way, looking at his pants and his shirt that he wears when he's about to be put into the carbon freezing chamber, well, I guess while he's under Carbonite, he also manages to go to a tailor, because when he pops out on the other side, when he's released from the Carbonite by Leia in Jabba's palace, He's wearing a different shirt and different pants. I mean, they're similar, but they're not quite the same. So, yeah, I guess he goes through there's a tailor in that Carbonite, too. Now, there was a Han Carbonite figure released in the original line, the vintage line, the retro line. What do we call this line now? Like the classic Kenner line? I don't even know. So the famous Han Solo without a neck figure that would plug into the Carbonite, you could see him through it. It was made of clear plastic. The new version just clipped in and was actually sculpted accurate with his hands up around his shoulders, not down at his waist, like the vintage figure. So you got a accurate Han Solo in Carbonite. There was also a Carbonite Han that came with the original Slave 1, but the scale was a little off. So this was kind of the first time you got a 3 3/4 scaled Carbonite block of Han actually posed correctly in the right scale. It's also interesting that the image on the front of the card, the cinema cell, or the screenshot, was the Carbonite block, not Han Solo. So, I mean, it's not like they would actually sell us a figure of just the Carbonite block until they did just sell us a Carbonite block on a card. But that was actually pretty cool. I have to give them props for that, even though it was taking a Comic-Con item and putting it on a blister card, which I have my own issues with that. But that's not important right now. Han did get some cool variants. Again, the whole one-and-done concept was thrown out after a couple years, and you had melty Carbonite block, and you even had fully melted empty Carbonite block with Han with his hair slicked back, which I'm surprised. This actually was a one-and-done. They never did this version again outside of the Jabba the Hutt's palace cardboard diorama set, that specific scene shot of Han. But it was really great that they did that. All right, wrapping up this wave was the purple carded Leia as Boushh. So while Leia wore the Boushh outfit in Return of the Jedi, obviously, when she broke into Jabba's palace, well, I guess she walked into Jabba's palace with Chewie, this look was heavily used in the Shadows of the Empire storyline as well, and we actually get an explanation of where she gets the outfit and how she gets the thermal detonators and why Chewbacca is dressed up as Snuva, etc., etc. So the figure was released on a purple branded Shadows of the Empire card, even though she is completely a Return of the Jedi character. And I loved the original Boushh, the Princess Leia from the Kenner line. I guess I'm just going to call it the original line, for lack of a better word. It was one of my favorites as a kid, so getting this figure so early in the new line was a total, joy buzzer, if you will, reminding me of the play I had as a kid and how much I loved this figure. And this was a great update. We got, more detail. She now actually had a thermo detonator, although it was sculpted into her hand. Later versions of Boushh, or Leia's Boushh, would have a removable thermal detonator, which was actually even cooler, as well as a cloth cape. This version was made of plastic and just slid into her back, and it fit pretty good. It had actually 2 pegs, one in the back and one in the shoulder, which was cool because it helped keep it in. I never like when my capes fall out. That's one of my sort of pet peeves. Now, an interesting thing about this figure, besides kind of being a quick-to-market new version of Leia, since the first one, the sculpt wasn't that great, monkey jokes aside.
Mother, it's a man, baby!
While we as Star Wars fans do love our female characters, and we even love them when they're armored up, well, characters like Bo-Katan, in her armor, it's a female. She's wearing female armor. With Leia's Boushh, well, she does look more boyish, more masculine. Call it a Shakespearean thing, whatever you want to call it. And not being sexist, not being genderist, but boys and girls play very differently. Trust me, I'm married to a child play therapist. I get to learn all about this. She has a master's degree from NYU in this kind of stuff. And children's brains function differently. And there's a reason that this version of Leia gets released a lot in a boys' line, because she looks more masculine, especially with that helmet on. She could be a male character. And boys like playing with boy toys. Girls like playing with girl toys. It's the gender they identify with. And oh my gosh, I'm opening up a can of worms with the whole gender identification thing. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just saying that boys naturally are attracted to male figures. And hey, hands up, how many of us when Boushh first walked in thought that it was a male under that armor? It was a surprise when it turned out to be Princess Leia. And that's why Boushh shows up a lot because, well, yeah. And I'm a sucker for figures with helmets. I mean, come on. With a removable helmet, I think a figure is just 10 times cooler. And anytime you're going to give an action figure a helmet that comes off to reveal the face, whether it's a surprise or not, hey, I'm in on it. Masks are cool.